Hello, scholars. This is the professor speaking, and I welcome you to Hi, That's Scary, a podcast that utilizes cannabis to analyze horror cinema. The title of today's lecture is Remakes and the Role They Play, Part 1. Today we will be discussing My Bloody Valentine 3D, a 2009 remake of the 1981 Canadian slasher. The film stars Jensen Ackles as Tom Hanninger, Jamie King as Sarah Palmer, and Kerr Smith as Axel Palmer. There are several writing credits, which includes Todd Farms, Zane Smith, John Beard, and Stephen Miller. It was directed by Patrick Cousier. The strain used for this analysis was Tangy in a cartridge. This is a sativa strain that has effects of euphoria as well as aiding in creativity and focus. Let's get to some background about this film. My Bloody Valentine 3D is one of several late 2000s/early 2010s horror remakes of 80s classics and not so classics. During the same general period that this film came out in, we were also blessed with Fright Night, Children of the Corn, Prom Night, Friday the 13th, to usually mixed to poor results. A lot of these films, most of these films, were on a scale of meh to an abomination. Looking at you, 2010 Nightmare on Elm Street. I didn't forget. My Bloody Valentine was a victim of the 3D craze of the time as well. Saying this now, seeing a 2000s 3D movie on a 4K TV, hysterical. It looks terrible and I love it. That's the beauty of a remake, especially the not great ones. When you enjoy breaking down horror films like I do, a remake can be a fun challenge. They can be looked at through so many different lenses. How the story was updated alone is a topic that can be heavily discussed due to the sheer broadness and flexibility of it, which is exactly why I had such a fun time with this film. When I watch these films, I will often pause so that I can take my notes without missing anything. I had two things happen during these pauses for this movie. Either an epiphany, or losing my shit. Usually one followed another. Needless to say, your professor had quite the time putting this together. Without further ado, let's get scary. We begin the film with some expositional newspaper articles and radio snippets. On Valentine's Day 1997, an explosion happened at Hanninger Mine. 6 miners were trapped in the resulting cave-in. Once the rescue team was able to get through the rubble, they found a sole survivor, Harry Warden, who was in a coma. It turns out Warden actually killed all the other men in order to hoard oxygen for himself. The explosion happened in the first place because Tom Hanninger, son of the owner of Hanninger Mines, forgot to tend to the methane lines, and that evidently is something you don't want to do. The wording of the articles and voiceover is very accusatory towards Tom, blaming him for everything that went on when it was Harry Warden who killed all those people. Tom isn't blameless, he totally messed up, but he didn't kill anyone. It was a dumb accident, and yeah, people theoretically wouldn't be dead if the explosion hadn't happened, but cave-ins could still happen without Tom having fumbled the ball. So, in the hospital 1 year later, Harry Warden lays in a coma, dreaming of the collapse. He awakens and is ready for a second run. A nurse comes in, and he's not in his bed. Roommate has already been murdered. There is a bad 3D title card, and that is when I fully remembered that this was a 3D movie. Was it the words 3D on the cover of the DVD? No. Was it the 3D glasses that actually came with the disc? Nah. That title card? I was stoned off my ass and my immediate thought was, graphic design is my passion. So I had to pause to wheeze. Back in the hospital, the police have arrived. There are bodies everywhere, some seemingly ripped in half, I believe. The nurse is dead, and her heart was cut out of her body and placed into a box of chocolates. Over at the mine, the local youths are partying. And just like, for why? I lived in a small town, scholars. People partied in the woods. Why would any rational person think it would be a good idea to have a party in a mine on the anniversary of a cave-in and subsequent murders? I don't get it. They have woods. There is plenty of wooded area shown in the film, so why are these people partying in the mines? It doesn't make sense. I can't make it make sense. Axel and his girlfriend Irene are among the attendees. Axel makes it very apparent that he doesn't like Tom to Irene, obviously being one of the people who blame him for last year's whole fiasco. Sarah and Tom arrive at the mine and meet up with Axel and Irene. Before they reach them, Sarah checks in with Tom to see if he's okay, considering trauma. He says he's fine. The four chat briefly, Irene suggesting a picture, to which Axel rudely rejected. Let me make note that the actors who are playing these ambiguously aged teen 20-somethings are all nearing or in their 30s, which makes sense as this is just a short 90s sequence. There's no reason to hire other actors. But dear God, is it apparent these are full-ass adults. Not baby adults, but full-ass adults trying to portray younger adults. They are all dressed in a way that is very hello fellow kids, especially Axel with the beanie and the long sleeve shirt over the short sleeve shirt and the overall bagginess of his outfit. Their age is even more apparent thanks to high definition. And then it really hit me that Tom is meant to be about 21-ish here, I think, because of the beer. And that when the actor portraying him was that age, he didn't look like that. 20, 21, that man was still a twink. I mean that in the nicest and most respectful way possible. Twinks are valid. Axel and Irene head inside, with Sarah and Tom originally falling behind, but stopping before going in. Sarah checks in again, like a good girlfriend, to see if Tom is okay with being there and reassuring him that they could leave. Tom repeats that he's okay, and the two share an I love you. As I pause to note their exchange, wanting to write down something about Sarah's attentiveness and acknowledgement of Tom's trauma in relation to the mines, but the moment that froze on my screen completely blanked out whatever my freshly steamed brain was thinking, because I was blessed with Tom looking at the mine with his eyeballs just desperately trying to escape his skull. It was the type of face and amount of eye bulging that my immediate reaction was, oh, his butthole clenching, don't go in there. And do you think the movie heard me? Let's find out. No, the answer is no. Tom sends Sarah in ahead, having quote-unquote forgotten the beer in the car. Nah, he's stalling, don't go in there. There's no reason for him to go in there. It doesn't make sense. I can't make it make sense. As Sarah makes her way into the cave, she passes by a couple of people on her search for Axel and Irene. She's alone for a few minutes, and it allows that feeling of apprehension to set in. Why is it suddenly so empty? Someone jumps out at Sarah dressed as a miner. She's startled, but it turns out to just be a prank, one of her peers. That peer is promptly pickaxed through the eyeball 3D style. Sarah screams, and she does so by holding her hand over her mouth, so that probably helped with dubbing it later. And then she just kinda stands there. She takes a long time to run, and okay, yes, I understand that being paralyzed by fear is a thing. I get that. I'm just saying that if you see someone get murdered in front of you and you stay stuck there screaming instead of running and screaming, maybe don't be upset if you get caught by the killer because you didn't do yourself any favors. Warden chases Sarah throughout the tunnels, eventually passing bodies of murdered partygoers. Having run out of Warden's sight at the right moment, Axel grabs Sarah and pulls her against a side tunnel where he and Irene are hiding. They press against the wall and stay quiet as Warden passes them. A random person appears, having been searching for other people. He walks down and stops right where the three are, having called out to Warden thinking he was just someone fucking around. Having realized what's going on, the partier runs. Warden catches and shares his pickaxe with him as the trio run away. Warden goes after them. Axel gets to be a victim of the falling while running for your life trope, which allows Warden to catch up. He gets up, falls again, and nearly gets got by Warden. Thankfully, Sarah comes to his rescue by hitting Warden with a shovel. That shovel is taken from her and used to decapitate some random partier that just had poor timing, and oh, scholars, the effects. Had this poor girl's head sliding around on the shovel like an egg in a pan. Axel and Sarah continue trying to nope the fuck out the mines. They run into Tom and pass Tom, warning him to run. Just like Sarah earlier, Tom takes mad long to start running. Like, Warden walks up while close to him before he starts moving. And then Warden breaks into a run, so Tom loses the advantages he would have had with distance and speed. Using the pickaxe, Warden hooks Tom around the neck to catch him, and that had to suck. In real life, it probably would have crushed his windpipe, considering force and momentum science things. Axel and Sarah keep running to the truck where Irene is waiting. They pile in, and Warden hucks his pickaxe at them, it slamming into the windshield and nearly getting Sarah in the noggin. Axel gets in the driver's seat with this angry, contemptuous look and drives away, leaving Tom there to die. Now, I know Axel and Tom had beef, but that's kinda low. They were in a truck, and it looked like one of those older ones that could survive a bomb drop, so he easily could have driven forward, hit Warden, got Tom to climb in the bed, and peel out of there. But no, Axel decided to just dip, loosely holding on to the trying to get Sarah and Irene to safety excuse, and left a man to be murdered when he feasibly could have helped without taking on much risk. Tom is able to get up and away while Warden was busy pickaxe throwing. He goes into tunnel number 5, which had been the collapsy one, and switches to a walk. He stops and looks around, not noticing Warden coming up behind him until the last moment. Tom turns and is able to dodge Warden, but falls. Again. Warden is about to kill him when shots ring out. Tom's face is splattered with blood. Sheriff Burke tells Warden to stop and shoots him again when he doesn't comply. More blood spatter getting on Tom's face. Warden runs deeper into the mines to escape. Tom is very clearly not bueno. We jump ahead in time by a decade. Axel is now the sheriff and doing an interview with a reporter about the 10-year anniversary of the massacre. He's openly hostile with her, swearing on camera and using an abrasive tone. His frustration is valid. It takes a lot of emotional labor for communities who experience tragedies like this to have to deal with the yearly presence of newscasters trying to monetize their sorrow. The problem is that if he couldn't express that in a less vitriolic way, he shouldn't have agreed to the interview or should have sent someone else to do it. Ben, the manager of the mine, is in the same diner as Axel when his interview airs and calls him on making the town look bad. And he did. The issue isn't in what he said or how he said it, so much as it's in him using that language and tone as an official representative of the town. You can't just pop off at the mouth when you're representing more than just yourself, especially not on the daily news. In that moment, he was only thinking about himself and his feelings, not the feelings of the town, because if he was thinking of the town, he would not have delivered his grievances like that. But he doesn't see it that way and gets defensive, because of course he does. He's married to Sarah now, not Irene, but he exchanges these looks with this girl that works with his wife, and it's one of those things that makes you squint. And the squint was justified, scholars. Axel be fucking the brown hair girl Megan. She's young, maybe early 20s, if not just still a teenager, which is creepy. He has authority over her, being the sheriff, and I'm pretty sure Sarah is a manager and thus her boss. So she's stuck in a really weird place that no matter how you spin it, is a deeply unhealthy relationship dynamic. You know what's the best thing to add to that? A baby! Wait, no, you should not add babies to turbulent relationships. But it seems Axel's ability to read instructions is on par with his ability to remember his vows. Yes, Megan is pregnant. She tells him this after giving him his Valentine's gift, since he'll be with Sarah. Axel tells her he didn't get her anything, and her way of delivering the news was to tell him he already gave it to her. He looked like his stomach dropped to his ass, and ha ha, that's what you get. Don't cheat, just leave, you asshole. A 10 years older but got the exact same face, even though in a decade that man went from twink to twunk, but what do I know? Tom Hanninger arrives at the Hanninger Mines. He takes a look at the closed Tunnel 5, does not go in this time, and leaves. He heads to Ben's house in order to sign some paperwork. It turns out the whole reason Tom's back in town is because his father died, and he had to take care of the business things. He's selling. Ben tries talking him out of it because of the community's dependence on the mine, and I know that Tom is supposed to be framed as being an asshole here, and selling the mine is a bad thing, but there's some things to consider. Tom selling the mine is a final fuck you to Dad, according to Ben, which makes his motivation trash. He's not considering what will happen to the town at all, and it's so privileged. Tom makes the point to mention to Ben the promises the company has made, to which Ben says that they'll keep their promises for a few months and then lay people off. That's a good point, but that shouldn't necessarily fall on Tom. Why is it Tom's fault if a corporation screws over the town if by doing so they essentially lied to him in order to do it? He can't make them keep people on. I don't think Tom should own the mine. When has Tom demonstrated he can run a business, let alone a mining business? It would be foolish for him not to sell it. Tom brings up the great point that mining as an industry is dying and has been for a while. There's so few of those small town mines left. Mines and mining is dangerous, very dangerous work. The insurance cost must be astronomical. So they want Tom, who as far as we know has no business experience, to take over running the mines in a dying industry. Why? So when the mine closes anyway, they can still blame him? Ben continues to try to scold Tom into not selling as he brings him his father's ashes. Surprise, surprise, that don't work. Tom takes his dad and leaves. Tom goes to a local hotel where he encounters a dog and a woman that I'm assuming is the office manager or at least desk clerk of some kind, and gets a room. Next door to Tom, Irene, remember, used to be Axel's girlfriend, is getting busy with a man named Frank. After they finish, Frank gets up and starts getting dressed. In the mirror, Irene sees that he had recorded their encounter without her consent. That is wrong. She confronts him and he offers her money, which she refuses, saying that she isn't a sex worker. Frank throws the money at her and tells her that she is now, and fuck you, Frank. He leaves. Irene goes to her things, pulls out her gun, and goes after Frank. Let us make note that she is wearing high-heeled shoes and nothing else. Homegirl dressed herself with her weapon and that's it. She is buck-ass naked, good for her. She catches up to Frank and holds him up for the tape. He tells her to go inside because naked, but otherwise isn't fazed. He opens the door to his cab and is greeted with a pickaxe through his skull, courtesy of the miner. Good. Fuck you, Frank. Irene flees to her room, doesn't fall, and hides under the bed. The trauma of seeing, presumably, Harry Warden has caused Irene to not properly utilize the weapon she had. While hiding, the office manager woman comes in looking for her dog. The miner comes and quickly dispatches her, pickaxing her through the head up into the ceiling. The miner finds Irene soon after, and he tries to pull her out from under her hiding place. She kicks him, and those shoes hurt, so he lets go. There's a scuffle, Irene eventually standing and using the bed frame as a shield. The shield isn't the greatest. Irene gets a pickaxe in the gut. Later, Axel and Deputy Martin, who I think is like one of the only other cops in this town, are at the crime scene. Irene's heart had been cut out of her chest. We transition to the grocery store. Megan arrives for work late, and it's clear Sarah is annoyed, but she's still understanding. Sarah is working in the register when we reach the Tom-Sarah reunion moment. She quickly gets visibly emotional, calling him out on abruptly leaving after the incident a decade ago, and no one knew where he was, not even his father. Tom tries pushing these points off like it's not a big deal. Sarah again calls him on his shit, and he deflects by commenting on the photo of her, Axel, and their son. Tom leaves shortly after. Axel calls Sarah to tell her about Irene, which feels weird. Like, I know they were all friends, so better to hear it from him than the news, but did he have the actual legal clearance to do that? Pretty sure they're not supposed to do that. Back at the station, the video footage found at the scene is being watched. They see up to where the camera is dropped, Irene running away, the miner pursuing her. Axel receives a Valentine that had been anonymously sent. The box is bloody, and Axel promptly requests a glove. Good, trying not to further contaminate evidence like you're supposed to. Awesome. He opens the box to find Irene's heart inside. That's where we're going to end it today, scholars. Before we wrap up completely, I had an announcement. You see, your professor has been doing some side work with a group of people for a particular cause. You may have noticed that I tend to look at and analyze the films chosen for each lecture through the lenses of various minority groups. Be them LGBT+, POC, mentally ill, among others. This is because I feel strongly about the narratives of these groups and their need to be recognized, especially in horror. Due to my feeling so strongly about it, I find it is my duty to call out when these communities are being misrepresented. Which is exactly why I have a request for you, scholars. There seems to be a documented reoccurring issue with the CW network regarding their representation of minority groups in their shows. They are currently being accused of queerbaiting, burying your gays, ableism, racism, misogyny. They are being accused of erasing, villainizing, censoring, killing, and silencing characters of minority groups. They're being accused of using these minority characters as a way to bring in audiences and then never fulfill an unwritten promise that is made by introducing that minority character in the first place. You know, using them for clout. If you happen to watch a show on the CW network, if you stream their content or engage with any of their social media, I just have a small ask. If you want to send the message that the accusations I listed are unacceptable, please do not watch CW content or interact with their social media for the week of February 1st through the 7th. Only 1 week. You can go right back to it, starting the 8th. It would be a tremendous help. Tune in next week for Remakes in the Role They Play Part 2. Until then, stay scary.